Get on your feet, bring some energy as we bring the Empress stage, also from Atlanta, Georgia, the John Wetmore! Boom, ladies and gentlemen, let's go.
What up, what up? Thank you. Appreciate the intro. Thanks for having me, Cody. Love being part of this, and thanks for having me follow the new guy. Appreciate it. Thanks. I guess I'll figure out how to work the green button, I assume, huh? We'll go with that. All right, so I'm gonna run through, I remember like when I was coming to these conferences early, funny enough, early on in our journey, we had one of our first conventions here when we had like no agents. So it's kind of a flashback to be back here, and I've had a lot of cool memories here. But early in my career here, I remember being at a phase where I was like still unsure if I could have success in this industry. I'm sure some of y'all feel like that. Maybe some people are frustrated with where they're at. They're still at a point where a chargeback hurts them, an agent quitting messes them up. Like you go through these frustrating phases of your career here. And, some of y'all I found out may not even believe that this is the industry for you, or that you can have unlimited success in this industry. Some folks think it's like only a limited number of people can have it, only the people who are up here or whatever. They have this misconception. Unfortunately, for me, I'm crazy, and I've always believed that I could accomplish what someone else can accomplish. And I'm gonna tell a quick story. We were going to Cody's LA Roadshow about a month ago, and I'm fortunate I get to take my family on a lot of stuff, so we tend to do things like this and hang out a couple days before, a couple days after. And Maddox is now joining us. He's sitting front row, of course, here, and my man. Now I had to pay him $50 to stay here all day because he won't stay otherwise. But we're going to LA and to do Cody's and a couple other events, and he wants to go to a Dodgers game. And so we're looking at it, and Maddox does not want to sit in the nosebleeds, right, homie? He wants to be like in the dugout. He would pitch if he could. And we're going out there, and like Maddox, so for those that don't know the story, I grew up extremely broke. I was broke at 35. Steph and I used to have to like cut coupons, or Steph cut the coupons. But I have 4 kids prior to her. She's always been there to support me through my journey and what I'm trying to do and my craziness. And my other kids grew up completely broke. 2 of them kind of seen a transition. Maddox, the reality is he doesn't know anything but money. So we try to teach him differently, the value of it and how to earn money and what it takes. And it's a different teaching lesson with Maddox than it was my older kids. So we go to get these tickets, and we're like right behind the dugout. It's like $1,000 a ticket. So I tell Maddox, I'm like, hey, we're showing him the stuff, and I said, dude, it's like 4 G's, just so you know, for these to go. And he wants a jersey and all that stuff. I'm like, it's gonna be about $4 grand to go. And I asked Maddox, I said, I love this kid. I said, he knows what's coming. You hear me say it. I said, do you know how long it takes the average person to make $4 grand? And he said, Daddy, are we talking a regular job or are we talking insurance? He said, I've heard you talk to your guys. It should only take about 4 hours for that, right? I was like, my man, we're going to the Dodgers. And for me, like, some of y'all got to believe in this like a 10-year-old believes in it. He knows nothing but success. That's all he's around. Everywhere he is, he sees successful people in this industry, and it's his norm. He just expects that you can make great money in this business, which you can. But some people don't believe it. which causes you to not be able to achieve it, of course. We've all heard that, right? So I'm gonna go through what's worked for me in this business, in this industry, and Maddox saw me preparing for this the other day, and I come in, I'm like, I guess I'm scratching my head. He goes, Daddy, you look stressed. And I said, nah, dude, I'm just thinking about what I want to say. He goes, why don't you just tell him what you did? I was like, solid. So he literally helped me prepare this. So early on in my career, I'm sitting down, I'm a year or two in, super mediocre. We're getting by, we're paying the bills, but nothing amazing. And I remember, and I'm an accountant previously, so I'm looking at my stuff, and for the first couple years in this industry, I was always looking for that like magic potion, the little blue pill. Not that one. And like the secret sauce, the magic phone script, the perfect lead, the perfect vendor, the perfect county, the perfect time to call. I was hunting for all that stuff. And I remember one day I'm nerding out with my spreadsheet, and I'm looking at numbers and dials and calls and how many appointments I'm running, and I'm frustrated because I can't figure out how to get to the next level. And I'm always trying to like use somebody else's style and somebody else's clothes and somebody else's in-home, and I just couldn't get it. And I remember looking at this and I went, what happens if I just decide to just do more now and get better later? And I literally just looked at my numbers and I was like, if I just run 3 times the appointments, because I was not doing many, wouldn't I just have the 3 times the result? And dude, I decided I was just gonna suck more often. Does that make sense? That was my strategy in this industry. And for me, I talk about do more a lot. It's in most things you hear me say. I say it all the time. I use it in my office. I've run with this for like 8 years now, and it's all I talk about. And I live by this, and it means more than just doing more to me. So I'm going to run through things. There's an acronym to it. We have signs in my office that talk about this. And again, this is what's worked for me. I live by this. If it helps you, I know some of us are on different lines. We do different things. Not everything applies. Figure out how to apply it to your world if it helps, and if it doesn't, all good. Someone else will be up soon. So, for me to make the changes, I decided I had to really start to have a new level of discipline, right? That was number one for me. And when I was part-time for about a year, and I was running like 10 or 12 appointments a week. And then when I went, like, how many people sell insurance full-time in here? Can y'all stand for me? I want to see how many there are. Sell insurance and are unsatisfied with where they're at financially. Okay, so there's a lot of them, right? Stay with me for a minute, right? So here's the question I had to ask myself. Like, full-time. How many hours do we define full-time as? 40, right? And I had to have a conversation with myself. And hang tight, right? I said, John, how many appointments a week are you running? And my answer to myself was 12 a week. That's what my number was. And when I asked myself how many I sit with, it was about 8 a week. Okay? And I asked myself, how long do I sit with each client? It was about an hour, was my answer. So one day I spent 8 hours sitting with clients. Okay? Then I went, how many dollars do you make, John? It was about 100, 150 a week. How long does each one take? Like a minute. So that's another couple hours on the phone if I gave myself a minute per dial. Right? So I'm up to like 10, maybe 11 hours if I really stretch it. If I'm being timed during money-making activity. Does that make sense? And then in recruiting, I was doing a handful of interviews a week. 5, 6, 7, 8 a week. And I went, how long do those take? About 20 minutes a pop. So it's another couple hours there. And what I learned is, I didn't define full-time as 40 hours like y'all just said it did. I defined full-time as this is all I did. Does that make sense? And if you guys would ask yourselves the same questions in whatever way it applies to you, and like we drive a lot. Dude, I drove a lot to go to my accounting job. That didn't count, right? We study a lot. Dude, I had to go to college to get a degree. I studied then too. That didn't count. I still had to work 40 hours. Does that make sense? And I had to look at this thing and just be real with myself that I wasn't actually working full time. And I changed my world and I said, I'm only giving myself credit for 1 hour per SAT appointment. So I started scheduling 30 a week to sit 20. That was going to give me 20 hours. I committed to $600 a week, 1 minute per. That's another 10 hours. we're up to 30. And I committed to 30 interviews a week recruiting, 20 minutes a pop, that's another 10 hours. That's how John Wetmore got to 40 hours. That is literally the only thing I changed in my career, to go from mediocre to my sales tripled that year. Does that make sense? I did nothing different. Same in-home, same phone script, same lead, same everything. So what I always want to know from people is, are you really full-time, or is this just all you do? Ask yourselves that and answer it for yourselves, all good, but that was the question to me. Y'all can sit, please. Next thing, ownership, which really means own your shit. Right? Like if you're part-time, own it. If you're missing sales, own that you're missing the sales because you did something incorrectly. If agents quit on you, you know it's not their fault. You can say that, but what did you do incorrectly? Like, what part in this piece do you play? And I had to start looking at that for myself every single day. What could I change about every situation that didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, about my approach, the way I ask questions, the strategy, the way I say it, the way I word it? Did I get people to like and trust me or not? Is that why I got to think about it? I had to start owning things. And I started looking at this like, how can everything be my fault so I can fix it? Because until I became the problem, I couldn't be the solution. Does that make sense? And it was a very easy transition for me to look at every situation and go, where did I go wrong here? And I just started owning it because I was lazy. I wasn't working. I was sleeping in. I wasn't dialing enough. I wasn't putting in the activity that it took to have the level of success I wanted. And one day somebody challenged me and he said, why do you expect my results with your work ethic? Because I was looking for the magic pill from that guy. And he was running 30 appointments a week, and I was running 12. And he had a valid point. So I decided to change it. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Let's see if I can finish up. There we go. Mistakes. Mistakes are super important. I think they're the key to learning. A lot of people say they learn by watching, which I hate that answer. And my response, for those of you that have heard this before, I'd say, have you ever watched the Olympics? Can you do any of that? We learn by making mistakes. Does that make sense? That's how we get better. Now, I believe mistakes are made up of 4 parts, and if you don't hit all 4 parts, I don't believe you get all the juice out of the mistake. Number 1, I think you need to own the mistake. You need to own that you made it. If you don't own that you made it, you're going to blame someone else, and you're going to leave, and you're going to try to validate why you didn't have some level of success. Okay? I think that you need to be obviously willing to make mistakes. It's really step 1. If you don't have a willingness, you can't even own them. So like, some people are afraid to make that step and make that jump. Someone talked about that earlier. I think it was Roger. You know, taking that first step. I think you need to get feedback on your mistake from someone who's better at whatever you do than you are. The route I chose was, every time I missed a sale, I chose to connect with 3 people that were better at selling life insurance than me and ask their perspective on the mistake I made. And I became completely vulnerable as to what I was doing so I could be honest and get real feedback. And a lot of times it hurt because they had to tell me the truth. They had to tell me when I was rude to someone, Cody. They had to tell me when I skipped steps. They had to tell me when I missed a training call. Like, they had to tell me the truth. Does that make sense? And then I had to, the last part, number 4, is you have to then implement the piece they give you. Because there's been thousands and thousands and thousands of agents that all of us talk to, and we give them some advice, and they go back and they keep doing the same thing. I was one of those guys for the first few years in the industry. Okay? Super easy. Obsessed. Cody talked about it. Most of y'all with names on the front of your seats are obsessive type personalities, and that's why you can afford the front seats. I became obsessed. I'm pretty obsessive anyway, so this wasn't a hard transition for me, to be honest. But I became obsessed with everything to do with this industry. I became obsessed with sales. I became obsessed with the psychology of this. I became obsessed with putting myself in rooms like this to get around successful people that I could ask questions to, so I could learn everything I wanted to know about the industry I was in. I was trying to become a master in this industry. And if we relate, like NFL, what was he, number 15 pick or whatever he said earlier, right? Imagine if insurance had a draft, right? And they check the intangibles that you all have. Do you watch film before practice like he did? Do you get with your teammates and have another practice after? Like, what are the little things you're doing? And I became obsessed. Someone once told me if you want to get paid like a professional, you have to act like a professional. And he was a former athlete, and I took that to heart. So I became obsessed with everything about this business, and it worked out. Resilience. I think we all understand this. We have to fight through it. Life punches you in the face. The insurance industry, when your face is bleeding, will kick you in the side, probably stomp on you a couple times. Like, it's life. It's insurance. It's part of the game. You're going to have to get through things. However, I learned that that isn't only when you're broken coming up. You have to continue to be resilient through this entire thing, because just because you're having success, like Cody said, doesn't mean you don't have hard stuff happen, right? It's nonstop, and the problems get bigger and they get harder, and there's more stuff. And if I look back, like 2017, I got out of the field. This first year I made 7 figures. After following these first few steps, I came home. Steph was not used to me being home, and I was in her way. I messed up the routine. Me and Maddox used to wrestle when it was bedtime, and it was just chaos. And that was hard. We had an adjustment. End of 2017, Stephanie got diagnosed with cancer on her first mammogram at 40. She's now nearly 5 years cancer-free, so life is good. 2018 sucked. We've been married 12 years. We say 11 because one didn't count because I messed it up. And we barely made it. But we decided we were going to be disciplined in our marriage. We were going to take ownership of the things we did wrong and the mistakes and own them, and we were going to be obsessed with each other and fixing it. And we were going to be resilient in our marriage and pay attention to it and fight through that too. 2019, I'm looking at my agency. 2018, I was completely flat in my agency. We didn't grow at all. Going into 2019, I decided to implement these things again because in 18, I was watching the scoreboard. And I had great deposits, and I was looking at things, and I was wondering why the agents weren't growing the agency. But I stopped doing the little things. So I went back to in the field. I started doing 30 interviews a week again. That year, our agency tripled. Integrity knocked on my door. That partnership is not bad because they wrote me a big check and asked me to become a partner from doing these simple steps. Certainly, I learned skill set along the way with it. And the last thing for me is expectations. A lot of y'all are frustrated because of the expectations you have. Right? And I've learned that the frustration comes from a lack of clarity. And a lack of clarity typically comes from lack of questions. So if you're frustrated with something, look at your expectations and ask yourself some questions. If you're frustrated with clients, ask them questions and get clarity. If you're frustrated with agents, ask them questions and get clarity. And if I do things and help people and give back, and Johnny, help agents get paid, dude, and just help people with no expectation, I can never be frustrated. Does that make sense? This process is not difficult. And what I learned, Cody, is doing these really simple things gave me the skill set I so desired at the beginning. It magically appeared in my life because of how many reps I put in doing these simple steps. So if you guys will take anything out of this, please understand, if you want more, what do we have to do? Yes, sir. That is it. So if you want more for your family, if you want more for your business, that's it. Everything we do is about do more. All of it, all the time. That's my time. Stephanie and I are doing a breakout tomorrow. We're going to go over like the process of us building this, what's the word I want to use? When you give up stuff, that word. The sacrifices that we made along the way to build this thing, her role, my role, and how we each played a part. I think we're at 8:40 tomorrow, and I appreciate y'all's time. Thanks for having me.
Great job, man.
Thank you.
You're getting good at this too. Good luck.
All the way up, ladies and gentlemen, give it out, hit him again. Do more, John Wetmore! Stay standing about to wait our next speaker. Okay, who's motivated to do more now? I mean, after today, and we got